we ensured that we enshrined in our Constitution of Kenya the right to social security. The government has come up with several interventions. One of them is the economic inclusion program. We target the poor and the vulnerable, and then we give them a consumption support of Kenya 2,000 shillings, and then we attach them to a mentor who will coach them on life skills and on entrepreneurship skills. We then give them some startup kits to try and start an enterprise.
Hi, welcome back to your podcast, The Zero Hunger Project. I'm your host, Sumen,
I'm Stacia.
and today we have Dr. Lynett Ochuma joining us and talking about her work in Kenya. Would you like to say a little bit about her?
I would like to welcome Dr. Lynette to the podcast. She's the acting secretary at the State Department for Social Protection and Senior Citizens Affairs in Kenya. She leads the Economic Inclusion Program, spearheading the country's first government led economic inclusion initiative and its scale up across 25 countries. As vice chair of the Global G20 Alliance Board of Champions for Ending Poverty and Hunger, that's a mouthful, that title, promoting inclusive development worldwide. With over 31 years in public service, Dr. Lynette has been instrumental in advancing social protection policies in the Kenya Ultra Poor Graduation Strategy. Thank you for joining us today, Dr. Lynette.
Thank you too. I'm happy to be here.
We're very happy to have you. We have a bunch of questions to ask you. But the first question I want to ask you is, could you give us an overview of what's happening in Kenya right now, particularly when it comes to food security, the poverty rate, how the government is doing, how they're addressing these challenges?
Thank you so much. Speaking about poverty, poverty is one thing that the Kenyan government has been grappling with, and it has been reducing. Currently, the poverty rate in Kenya is at 39.8%, and we have about 7.1% who are living in extreme poverty. That's a huge number. In talk of numbers, we are talking of over 20 million Kenyans suffering from poverty. We've come up with several interventions to try and address the poverty issue. When we gained our independence in Kenya, we had three main issues that we wanted to fight. And one of them was poverty, and then we had disease, and then we had ignorance. In the other two, we are doing so well, but when it comes to poverty, it continues to be a challenge. And one of the reasons that is making poverty to be a challenge is because we've gone through so many covariant shocks, especially the ones related to climate. But as a country, we've done so much to try and alleviate poverty. One of the key things that we've done is that we ensured that we enshrined in our Constitution of Kenya the right to social security. So that means that the poor and the vulnerable can still access social protection services because it is a right, and we don't take it like it is something that we need to give them as an obligation, but we use the right approach. So as a country, in terms of social protection, we started by giving them cash. We were giving them Kenya shillings 2,000, which is around 1.5 US dollars. But we've since then increased that amount, and we are saying that cash alone is not enough. Because of the experiences that we had. So we were looking at ways, how do we make these people, the poor and the vulnerable, to be self-reliant and also to be resilient to shocks. So that's when we started the Economic Inclusion Program. Economic Inclusion Program targets the poor and the vulnerable people, the ones that are extreme poor, the 7.1% that I was talking about. So we'd want to move them from a point of extreme poverty to a point where they are self-reliant and they are resilient to shocks. So that's the main thing that we are doing. So we are shifting from vulnerability to resilience.
I love that.
I think that's music to my ears.
I have a question. First of all, when did Kenya gain its independence?
In 1963.
Okay, so not that
Not a whole
long
lot.
ago.
Yeah.
And one of the things you talked about was highlighting ignorance, which I thought was a really interesting, I guess, one of the trio of ways in which these issues are being addressed. Can you just explain what that means? I mean, I get how you would go after poverty and hunger. How do you go after ignorance?
Out of ignorance, we have ensured that everyone has access to education. So we are measuring the literacy levels. Yeah, the literacy level. In our constitution, everyone has a right to basic education. So we measure the transition rate, the retention, and the retention rate. So if you're able to go to school and you're able to read and write, then we say that you're literate. So that's what we are measuring. And therefore, if you're literate, then it means you're not ignorant because you can read and write.
Do you cover the sustainable development goals in schools in Kenya?
Yes, we do.
As a part of the curriculum. Am I correct?
No, it's not part of the curriculum, but we try and ensure that everyone is aware about the sustainable development goals.
That's amazing. I'm going to get back to one of the things that you mentioned is about building resilience in the community and getting people out of extreme poverty. How is the government doing that?
The government has come up with several interventions, and one of them is the economic inclusion program, the one that I said that I lead. So in the economic inclusion program, what we've done is we have a sequence-based activities where we target the poor and the vulnerable, and then we give them a consumption support of Kenya shillings, 2,000 shillings. And then we attach them to a mentor who will coach them on life skills and on entrepreneurship skills. So we then give them some startup kit, which we call the asset transfer, to try and start an enterprise. So these enterprises that they start, we ensure that they are climate resilient enterprises. And that is something that we have done. It has been evaluated and the impact is very positive. For a period of 5 years, supported by World Bank and FCDO, that's the Foreign Commonwealth Office, Development Office, we were able to target about 15,000 poor and vulnerable households. And the evaluation that was done shows that they were able to increase their income. We were able to reduce extreme poverty from 63% to 46%, which is a very positive impact. And then most of these households were not able to take even one meal. But after the intervention, most of them were able to take at least 2 meals per day. And they were even able to diversify the kind of foods that they eat. In terms of accessing credit, because they formed the village saving and loaning associations, they were able to save more than 1.6 times of what they were receiving. So from there, we can actually attest that economic inclusion program is one of the interventions that will enable the participants to be self-reliant and will also move them from extreme poverty. Looking at the social protection floor, the ILO, the one for the ALO, then we are able to move them from the poverty line and put them above the poverty line and try and retain them above the poverty line. That's when we say that they are resilient.
That's phenomenal.
Love it.
What?
And I'm hoping that other countries can do some learning.
Unbelievable. I wanted to know how that dovetails, if it does at all, with this ultra poor graduation strategy that Kenya has. If you could talk to us about that and how that's being rolled out.
It is what I was talking about. Yes, you can use the name economic inclusion, or you can use ultra poor graduation to be one and the something.
So I'm going to jump into as a vice chair for the global G20 Alliance, and talking about poverty and food security. Next week, we are going to be in Johannesburg with G20. And I am really excited with the hope that there will be a task force created on food security. Do you have any insights on how that came about and why globally at this point food security is that important to have a special task force with the G20? Anything about that?
One of the key things that the G20 Alliance is trying to address is food security and the issue of poverty. Now, Kenya joined the Global Alliance in the G20 summit that was held in Brazil. And we share a common vision that we would want to end hunger and end poverty. So as a country, we joined the Global Alliance by making a commitment. And the commitment that we made is that we will want to ensure that there is food security, and we will also want to ensure that we end poverty. And one of the things that the Global Alliance looks at is to share that vision of ensuring that we end hunger and end poverty. The G20 Alliance offers a platform where we can enhance partnerships. For those of us who are in Doha during the World Social Development Summit, we had about 200 countries that attended the Social Development Summit and the Global Leaders Alliance. And one of the key things that we had is to look at ways in which we can be able to pool finances so that we can support other countries, especially the developed countries. And that's where we had the fast track activities. Kenya was lucky to be a beneficiary where we will be supported in terms of access to water. And that already shows you the benefits that you get from partnerships or joining the Global Alliance. Secondly, there's the bit of sharing knowledge. I'll still give the example of Kenya. In the Brazilian embassy was able to show us the new technology that they have for harvesting water. So with the alliance, you are able to share knowledge and experiences from other countries and see what you can be able to adapt. So it offers a platform for sharing knowledge. It also offers a platform for partnership and collaboration. And it also offers a platform for co-financing. So you are able to get people to be able to support what your country would want to do in terms of ending hunger and poverty.
I wonder, Dr. Lynett, if you could talk about, you've been in public service for 30 years. I was wondering if you could tell us what changes you've seen in Kenya, specifically in Africa, maybe larger, around social protection and these types of movements and changes. How has the narrative changed as you've been involved in these platforms?
Wow, 30 years is a very old time. I've been in the I've been in the public service for 30 years, and I think by next year I'll be starting 31 years. And there's a lot that I've seen changing in the social protection space. When we started social protection in the 80s, that is in 1984, when we started with the cash. In 2004, when we started with the cash transfer, we were only giving cash transfer, and we were giving it in a very ad hoc way. And this time now we have developed systems. We have developed systems where, we started by we would carry money and take it to the participants and give them cash. You'd see us giving cash. But over time, we have developed digital systems where now we are not giving. Then the participants, the beneficiaries, would go to the bank and collect the money. Today, the participants can be able to access the money from their house. That is one shift that I've seen that never used to be there. So we've been progressing. So in terms of even payment, that has changed. And we also used to just give them cash. You'd give them cash, and the transfer value amount has also been changing over time. We were giving very little. We started by giving them 500 shillings, which is less than $10 per month. And now we have moved to around 20 point something dollars. And that is a transition that you've seen. And when in terms of coverage, we started with a very small number, but we've been increasing. And in the past 2 years, we've moved from 1.2 million people getting cash transfer. We are now at 1.7. And we've made sure that all the vulnerable people are included in terms of going across the life cycle. We've had interventions for the youth. Like now, if you look at the Kenyan news, we have a program that is known as Nyota. This is giving the youth opportunities, and the youth are happy that they've been included in the social protection space. We have a program for the older persons who are 70 years and above. That is something that we never used to have before, and it is a universal program. Anyone who is 70 years and above can join the program. We did have a program for persons with a severe disability. Currently, we have a program for severe disability. So it is social protection has been growing. And we also, when we would want to target the vulnerable people, we would go and collect that. As a country, we have now moved from that. We have an enhanced single registry, a depository for the vulnerable and the poor, so that now if you have an intervention, you can straight away get the data from the enhanced single registry, or we call it a social registry, where we have all the data for the poor and the vulnerable. So in terms of efficiency and being effective, we have really progressed. We also have consolidated cash transfer management information system, where we are able to transact the business and even interlink the systems with other government systems. So that is great progress that we've seen over the 30 years. And I'm sure.
That's incredible.
That's amazing.
Yes.
I wanted to know how much of that was political will, like on a government level, and how much of it was a community initiative. Where did the NGOs take place in any of that? Like what are the combination of forces that are coming together to have these huge strides?
I think one of the key things that we've done as a country, we realized very early that the government cannot do it alone. And therefore, we need each other for us to be able to achieve this vision of ending poverty and hunger. And I'll give the example of the economic inclusion program. One, when it comes to targeting, this is done with the community itself. The community are the ones who help us to identify the poor and the vulnerable, and therefore they actively participate in identification and even validation on who the participants should be. We rely so much on the technical expertise from non-governmental organizations. And I'd give the example of the Economic Inclusion Program, where in the first cohort, the first pilot phase that we had, we worked very closely with non-governmental organizations like BOMA that are known for economic inclusion, like Village Enterprise that are known for economic inclusion. And therefore, we were leveraging on the expertise that they have. We work also very closely with development partners like World Food Program. The World Bank is the one that has been giving us credit, and the Foreign Commonwealth Development Office has really also been supporting us. So we are working together with all the other key stakeholders that are in the space of economic inclusion. And as I said, as a government, we cannot do it alone. And that's why we need all the stakeholders to come on board so that we can be able to enhance coverage and even reach out to as many people as possible.
Amazing.
Absolutely. So, if I'm understanding correctly, listening to you, there was a time when cash transfers were very much in the agenda for the government primarily. And now there is, of course, there's still cash transfers, but the shift is going more towards economic empowerment. Is that a right statement?
Yes, we are shifting towards economic empowerment and making sure that there is also that bit of building resilience.
How is the youth being mobilized in Kenya towards economic empowerment and resilience? How are they participating in the national discourse?
One, we are riding on the demographic dividends of the youth. The youth in Kenya, those people below the age of 35, because for us in Kenya, our definition of a youth is somebody between the age of 18 to 35. And they are more than 75% of our population, the age that is below 35. It's like almost 75% of our population. This is a very huge number, and therefore we really need to work on the youth bulge. We know that they are very energetic and they are also very innovative. So one of the key things is that we've come up with a program to ensure that they are involved and they're also part of it so that they don't feel like they have been left out. And that's why I told you we've started a social protection program that we are referring to as the Nyota program that purely targets the youth and encourages them to start businesses and also is trying to train them on the saving culture. The same youths are the ones who are in the digital space. So when it comes to accountability and advocacy, then the youths are the ones that we will be able to rely on to ensure that they hold us accountable, those of us who are working in the social protection sector. Because we are encouraging people to look at the drivers of change in terms of economic empowerment, then we are really tapping on the talents that the youth have, especially when it comes to things like climate smart agriculture. The youths are very innovative and we are able to tap on that talent. So the youths play a big role, and the government has also realized that we need to do the same.
Absolutely. And
That's awesome.
knowing Kenya has probably the median age of Kenya right now is somewhere around 21 years age, if I'm not mistaken. That's a really important point. But the next thing you just touched very briefly, we know that agriculture is a big part contributed to the GDP of Kenya. And in many places in the world, it is getting more and more difficult by the day to have the youth involved in agriculture. Do you see the same problem in Kenya? And if so, how are you tackling that?
That is a challenge, but through a lot of training and capacity building, and even the youths themselves witnessing the effects of climate change, then they realize that the only way they can be able to help themselves, even in terms of getting out, then they need to be self-employed. And one of the areas that they can tap in is in agriculture. So they've been able to see the dividends that they can get from agriculture. And therefore, these days, there are so many youths that are involved in agriculture across the several value chains. Because when you talk of the value chain of transport, then the youths are the ones who are transporting, are in that transport business. So if you look at it across the value chain, in terms of marketing, in terms of transportation, then the youths are really involved in agriculture at whatever level of the value chains that we have.
That's
Um,
fantastic.
I wanted to know how you feel things are going. Are you happy with the progress in Kenya, or are there things that you're frustrated with? Are there things that you wish were going differently? And what are the things that are going well?
I am happy with the progress. We may not be at 100%, but we are happy with what we are doing. There's a lot of concerted effort, from government and the leadership. There's a lot of political goodwill for us to move forward. And this can be attested by the recently enacted the social protection policy. We have a social protection policy that we enacted in 2024. And this year, we have the Social Protection Act of 2025. So there's a lot of legislation that has been done by the government. We even came up with the National Policy for the Persons with Disability of 2024. And now again, we have the Persons with Disability Act of 2025. So there is a lot of political goodwill by just ensuring that we have a conducive environment. We have the legal frameworks that will ensure that as a government, we are able to deliver. Looking even at our bottom-up transformation agenda, we are looking at the lowest person, that lowest person, how can we be able to engage them? And by making sure that they participate in micro and small enterprises. So as a government, there is that deliberate and intentional effort to ensure that everyone is involved in development and no one is left behind. So to that extent, we are very happy. And we are also happy that the private sector and the non-governmental organizations have also realized that there is no need for us to do things in a fragmented manner. And therefore, we are coming together as both government and non-state actors to work, to collaborate together. And this is working very well for us. So that makes me happy that we are able to do that. What does not make me happy is that we are not able to reach the numbers. If it was within my wish, then we would ensure that everybody gets access to the social protection services, but the coverage is still low. But I would wish that we would reach to that last person who needs that service should be able to get it, but we are not yet there yet.
Yeah.
As we say, no one left behind.
Yes.
Absolutely. But why do you think that is the case? Like, why do you think you're not able to reach um, everyone?
We are not able to reach everyone because one, the population keeps on increasing, and two, we have the climatic shocks that have really reversed the gains that we have made, and therefore that requires that we have more resources. So one of the major things has been the financial constraint.
I normally ask at this point in the podcast 2 questions of people. One is, what is your best case scenario? Which I think you just answered actually, and that is reaching everybody. And that your sort of pie in the sky best case scenario is that no one does in fact get left behind in Kenya or anywhere else probably, but certainly in Kenya. And my next question is usually, what are the strategies or policies or ideas that you feel haven't gotten enough attention? What is happening in Kenya right now that is up and coming that might be of real benefit to solving the problems that you're currently facing?
I think one area that we really need to strengthen is evidence building for us to be able to make informed decisions. There's a lot that has been done, but we are not able to quantify what we've done because we've not collected enough evidence to be able to put up a case. Because the evaluations that need to be done are usually a bit expensive. And that means that we've not collected enough evidence. So if we are able to not to fragment our programs and be able to collect enough evidence so that we can make informed decision, then we'll be able to move so far. So one of our limitations is on data and impact evaluation. So I think that's one area that we are not doing so well, but we also need to do so much for us to be able to collect enough evidence and come up with programs that are backed with evidence.
Are you feeling optimistic?
Very optimistic.
Love it. Love it.
Very optimistic. So long as we have that vision, we are all working towards ensuring that we deliver. We deliver on that. We are very optimistic. And with time, Kenyans are also becoming enlightened. They know their rights, and they are demanding for those rights to be given to them. Which I think is a good thing. We are holding the citizenry are holding the government to account. So there is that two-way engagement, citizen to citizen, which is a good thing.
It warms my social justice heart to hear things like that. I love that we're ending our conversation together on such a high note.
No, thank you so much for your time, Dr. Lynett. This was amazing, and it was so good to hear what's happening in Kenya. And I think our viewers learned a lot, and I learned a lot, which I had no idea of the amazing empowerment programs that you're doing. It's kudos to you and your government and your team
Absolutely.
for doing that.
Yeah.
So until the next time, we're going to chat again. And Dr. Lynett, thank you for your time.
Thanks so much.
Thank you so much.
That was such an insightful conversation.
It's amazing to me. A couple of things stood out to me is the average age of their population, which I think is something that people forget about people other than people who live in sub-Saharan Africa. Let me say that. How young the populations are in these places because the mortality rate is low.
Imagine 70% of the population is youth of a country.
Yeah. So in Kenya specifically, she said 70% of their millions and millions of people are below the age of 30.
30.
Yeah.
35, I think she said.
Okay.
But whatever. One of the two.
Yeah.
But still, it's young.
It's crazy.
21 is their median age.
Yeah.
But what I really enjoyed about this conversation, which I did not know, is them not only supporting with cash transfers, which around the world, everybody says that's a great way. And not only they're not cutting it down, but also focusing heavily on empowerment, on economic empowerment.
Well, and she kept using the word resilience, which I love so much. It's your bounce back ability, right? It's your ability to sort of face strife and bounce back again as a
Absolutely.
household, and then as a neighborhood, and then as a community, and then as a, whatever, you live in a village, in a city, in a town, and a whatever. And so I really love the idea that they're focusing on individual resilience, family resilience, community resilience, right?
100%.
Because they're not going to be able to stem the tide of the things that these people have to face on a daily basis. So what they're trying to do is increase individual bounce back ability.
100%. And the reason it resonates really deeply with us is because at Feed Scarborough, we always focused on resiliency
Yeah,
and not just a hunger free.
right.
And I think that is important because we strongly, from day one of our existence
Yeah.
5 years ago,
Yeah,
we realized that handing out food is not the solution.
yeah.
You need to build communities that don't need these handouts,
Mhm.
don't need these food banks. And to see a country like Kenya, who's has their own challenges, there's
Yeah.
no question about it,
Yeah,
focusing on things like this and openly talking about it,
yeah.
I thought that was fantastic.
Well, and I think what it does is it reiterates this whole notion of sustainable development goals. That yes, the development goals themselves are very important, but they absolutely have to be sustainable, or they're
Absolutely.
not going to work in any capacity on any level.
Absolutely. And seeing Kenya, and when we were in Doha at the World Summit for Social Development, when we heard Kenya talk on the stage
Mhm.
about their alliance about poverty and food insecurity,
Mhm.
that's when we said, wow, they are being a global South country.
Mhm.
How the outlook that they have is something to keep your eyes on.
Yeah.
The whole focus on nobody
go-getters.
left, exactly,
Yeah.
nobody left behind.
Yeah.
I think it's fantastic. But one thing, and I'm going to say this because as I was listening to Dr. Lynette, it was going on in my mind.
Mm.
In this podcast, we have interviewed activists.
Mhm.
We have interviewed
Why? What is with the air quotes?
because some activists are not about just activism.
Okay.
It is about the regular lifestyle,
Okay.
which I understand. So it's
So
always
they're
not right for me to
they're
say advocates,
advocates. How about
not
that?
always
Yes.
activists.
Okay. Fine.
So that's why I say within quotes.
Okay.
We have interviewed people from civil society.
Yep.
We have interviewed people from government.
Yes.
We have interviewed people from ex-government.
Yes.
But there is a synergy that I find that when we are interviewing the government employees,
Mhm.
is the language and the way they talk.
Mhm.
It is very different from others that we have interviewed, the advocates or civil society.
I wonder, I would be curious to interview somebody who's been a beneficiary of one of these projects in any of these places in the world to see how it feels to be on the receiving end of this stuff.
Yeah, but also not only just beneficiary, I would at some point love to get an NGO from Kenya to say, what are your challenges?
Yeah, but I would
I
also
think that's
like, we've been
interesting.
talking about it from one direction only, and it's how we're forming these policies and how we're rolling out these initiatives. I would like to know on the other end how those initiatives and policies are being received
Absolutely.
and how they're being metabolized into the community, and how it feels to be the recipient of this help, because sometimes help isn't very helpful.
No, exactly.
Right? When we were talking before with one of our other podcast guests about he was saying one of the initiatives was trying to get small share farmers to give up their land to a cooperative.
Yes.
And they were like,
No.
no, we're
No.
not going to do that. Are you crazy?
No.
Like, these ideas seem like a good idea in an office
it doesn't
building
work.
or but when you actually try and implement them out on the ground, it's a disaster.
100%.
And we studied, when I was in school, we studied a lot of case studies where people tried to come in and intervene, and it ended up backfiring colossally, like horribly badly. And so I just think it's interesting. We've heard from all of these perspectives. I'd like to hear from the receiving end of that as well.
100%. But also the other thing that I really saw in most of these conversations, especially with bureaucrats,
Mhm.
is how much, and rightfully so, how much focus is on data
Mhm.
and decision coming through data. I think which is great.
Well, I mean, it's like science, right?
Yeah.
You can't argue with the facts. We
100%.
went boots on the ground and counted people who have benefited from these programs. We've counted people who are starving. We have counted people who are trying these initiatives. And here are the numbers, the hard, cold realities of what we're trying to face.
Absolutely.
There's no way you can do it.
No,
Otherwise, it's
otherwise.
conjecture and speculation.
And which is great that we hear these conversations and hear these sound bites from the bureaucrats and from government, that they are actually focusing. It's not just people sitting in a room and making those decisions.
But
I think
also
that's
how
great.
we've heard from several people how difficult it is to get your hands on those numbers. And sometimes you have to go out on your own and get them because they've either been skewed or they don't exist
Yes.
or they're locked in political
Depends from country to country, of course.
That's right. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like there are a litany of reasons why it seems that data is not possibly available in a way that it should be.
And we
Or it's
know
being
that.
doctored.
Yeah, we know that it is skewed based on what the government really wants the narrative to be.
Yeah.
And that's a reality of it.
Yeah.
But
That's where my social justice stuff flares up because I'm like, okay, you're supposed to be acting in service of your citizenry and you're not.
no. And there are various reasons. And I'm not
Sure.
here arguing that reason. I'm not in government to be doing that. But
Can
I
you
think
imagine if you were in government, Suman?
people would not fire me, but somebody would. But anyways, but I think what is really, which was very key, is the research that is happening on the ground by foundations and NGOs. I think that is where the eyes and ears need to be quite a lot.
And good for her for saying, as a government representative, the government can't be responsible for doing all of this.
Exactly.
Like for also a whole bunch of reasons, which we need not get into. Even she said it cannot be the sole responsibility of the government to roll out these initiatives. We need to have community involvement.
100%.
We need to have family involvement. The citizenry needs to be involved, and we need the supportive non-government organizations to come in and bridge the gap.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
No, this was a very enlightening conversation. I had a great time listening to Dr. Lynett. Hopefully you did too. If you're not following us, please do. The Zero Hunger Project. Looking forward to chatting again next week.
Take care.